Chapter 1: The Locked Room. My girlfriend and I rented a small cottage for a weekend in November. The property stood alone beside a lake, approximately 20 minutes from the nearest town. It had excellent reviews, and almost every guest described it as peaceful and private. The host sent us the entry code shortly before we arrived. Inside, everything appeared normal, except for one locked door beside the kitchen. A label identified it as an owner's storage room. The listing had mentioned it, so we thought nothing of it. That evening, we cooked dinner and watched television. At approximately 11, we heard something fall inside the locked room. It sounded like a glass bottle rolling across the floor. I checked the handle. The door was still locked. We assumed something had fallen from a shelf and went to bed. At 2:30 in the morning, I woke to the sound of the kitchen tap running. I went downstairs and turned it off. As I walked back towards the stairs, I noticed light beneath the storage room door. It disappeared almost immediately. I contacted the host through the rental application. He responded within minutes and said the light was automatic. He claimed small animals sometimes activated a motion sensor inside the room. I asked whether an animal could also have turned on the kitchen tap. He did not answer. The next morning, we found wet footprints on the kitchen floor. They began in front of the locked room and ended beside the back door. None of the doors or windows were open. We decided to leave early. While packing the car, my girlfriend realized she had left her phone charger upstairs. She went inside while I remained outside. Less than a minute later, she ran back out. She said the storage room door was open. I called the host. He insisted that was impossible because only he had a key. He told us not to enter and said he would contact someone nearby. We did not wait. Before leaving, I looked through the kitchen window. The door was partly open. Behind it, I could see a narrow room containing shelves, cleaning products, and a mattress on the floor. Someone was sitting on the mattress. They were watching us through the gap. We contacted the police from town. Officers searched the cottage, but found nobody. The storage room contained food, clothing, and a second door hidden behind a shelving unit. That door opened into a narrow passage running beneath the house. The passage ended at an exterior hatch concealed near the lake. The host claimed he did not know it existed. Police never identified the person living there. A month later, the listing disappeared. Before it was removed, my girlfriend checked the newest review. A guest had uploaded a photograph of the kitchen. The storage room door was closed, but beneath it, 2 wet footprints were visible on the floor. Chapter 2: The Family Photograph. My aunt rented an apartment while attending a wedding in another city. It was located on the top floor of an old building and belonged to a family who appeared to live there when it was not being rented. Family photographs covered the hallway walls. Most showed the same couple and their 2 daughters over many years. My aunt found it slightly personal, but assumed the owners had nowhere else to store them. On her first night, she noticed one photograph hanging crooked. It showed the family standing beside a Christmas tree. My aunt straightened it and went to bed. The following morning, the photograph was crooked again.
She adjusted it a second time. The evening, after returning from the wedding, she found it lying face down on the floor. The frame was undamaged, and the hook remained firmly attached to the wall.
When she picked it up, she noticed something different. A 5th person was standing in the photograph. It was an older woman positioned behind the family. Her face was partly hidden by the tree, but she appeared to be looking directly at the camera. My aunt was certain the woman had not been there before. She photographed the frame with her phone and sent the image to the host. She asked whether it belonged on the wall or should be placed somewhere safer. The host called immediately. He asked my aunt to describe the photograph without moving it again. When she mentioned the older woman, he became quiet. Then he asked her to leave the apartment. My aunt collected her suitcase and waited in a cafe nearby. The host arrived 40 minutes later with his wife. They inspected the photograph together. The wife began crying. The woman in the image was her mother. who had owned the apartment before them. She had died several years before the photograph was taken. The host believed someone had replaced the image as a cruel joke. He searched the apartment but found no sign that anyone else had entered. My aunt stayed at a hotel that night. The next morning, the host contacted her again. He had reviewed the photograph more carefully. My aunt was now visible in it. She stood at the edge of the image, partly obscured by the hallway door. She was wearing the same dress she had worn to the wedding. The photograph appeared to have been taken years earlier. The host removed every family picture from the apartment and stopped renting it. Several months later, my aunt received an envelope without a return address. Inside was the Christmas photograph. The family was gone. Only the older woman and my aunt remained. They were standing beside each other. On the back, someone had written, "Next year, come closer."
Chapter 3. The Checkout Instructions.
A friend of mine rented a farmhouse during a solo hiking trip. The house was old, but recently renovated. It stood at the edge of a small village and had no immediate neighbors. The host left a printed list of instructions on the kitchen table. Most were ordinary. Lock the windows. Place used towels in the bathroom. Leave the key in a box beside the door. The final instruction was unusual. Before sleeping, close the curtains in the upstairs hallway. My friend assumed the uncovered windows allowed morning sunlight into the bedrooms. On the first night, he forgot. At approximately 1 a.m., he left his bedroom to get water. As he stepped into the hallway, he saw a woman standing in the field behind the house. She wore a long white dress and faced the upstairs window. The field was private property, and the temperature was close to freezing. My friend closed the curtains and contacted the host. The host replied,
"Thank you. Please don't open them again tonight."
My friend asked who the woman was. There was no response. The next morning, the field was empty. The wet ground showed no footprints. My friend considered leaving, but decided to stay one more night. Before bed, he made sure the hallway curtains were closed. At 1 a.m., he heard 3 slow taps against the upstairs window. The curtains moved slightly. Then a woman's voice whispered from outside, "Those are supposed to stay open." The window was almost 5 meters above the ground. My friend locked himself in the bedroom and called the police. When officers arrived, they searched the house and field, but found nobody. One officer suggested that branches had struck the glass. There were no trees near the window. My friend left that night. As instructed, he placed the key in the box beside the door. While driving away, the host sent him a message asking whether he had completed the checkout instructions. My friend said yes. The host replied that one instruction was missing. My friend opened the digital copy of the house rules. A new sentence had appeared beneath the instruction about the curtains. "Count the people in the windows before you leave." He stopped the car and looked back at the farmhouse. The building had 6 upstairs windows. Someone was standing behind each one. 5 figures wore white. The 6th was wearing his jacket. My friend drove directly to the police station. When officers returned to the property, the farmhouse was empty. The rental company later told him the listing had been fraudulent. The actual owner had died the previous winter, and nobody had permission to rent the house. My friend showed them the messages from the host. The account no longer existed. The final message had changed again. It now contained only one sentence: "You forgot to count yourself."